12 men were bleeding out in a jungle kill zone, and the woman who could save them had just been ordered to stand down. Sergeant Lena Cross sat frozen at her observation post, listening to gunfire shred through her headset. Below, in the green hell of the Carson Rain Belt, a SEAL recon team was dying in real time. Command's voice was ice cold in her ear. Observe only. Do not engage. Do not move. But Lena's finger was already on the trigger. Her scope was already trained downrange, and the math in her head was screaming one truth louder than any order. If she obeyed, 12 men wouldn't see tomorrow. She muted command, gripped her rifle, and made the choice that would either destroy her career or rewrite the rules of engagement forever. Some decisions don't wait for permission. Before we begin, I need you with me until the very end of this story. If you're ready to see what one soldier did when the entire system told her to let good men die, hit that like button and drop a comment telling me what city you're watching from. I want to see how far this story travels. Now let's go. The observation post wasn't supposed to be anything more than a speck on a map. OP7, they called it. A wooden platform bolted into the canopy 60 feet above the jungle floor, camouflaged so well that even birds ignored it. 2 soldiers, 1 radio, 1 high-powered optic. The mission was simple. Watch the valley, report movement, stay invisible. Sergeant Lena Cross had been doing exactly that for 11 days straight, and she was good at it. Too good, maybe. Good enough that people forgot she was even there. Until today. It was 0847 hours when the first call came through. Havoc 6 to Overwatch, we are moving to phase line Delta, ETA 12 minutes. Lena pressed the transmit button on her headset, her voice low and controlled. Overwatch copies. Proceeding to phase line Delta. Skies are clear. Her spotter, Corporal Ben Ruiz, sat 3 feet away with a spotting scope pressed to his eye, scanning the valley below through gaps in the canopy. He was younger than her by 4 years, quieter by nature, and better at pretending the boredom didn't bother him. Think they'll actually find anything down there? Ruiz asked without looking away from his scope. Doubt it, Lena said. Intel's been cold all week. This whole op feels like we're chasing shadows. Good. Means we get to sit here and do nothing for another week. Lena almost smiled. Almost. But something in her gut wouldn't let her relax. The valley below them stretched out like a wound in the earth. Dense jungle on all sides. A narrow clearing in the center where a dried riverbed cut through the terrain. Perfect ambush country. The kind of place where you either controlled the high ground or you died trying to cross it. And Havoc 6 was walking right into it. 12 operators. Elite. Experienced. Armed to the teeth. They'd done this 100 times before. Recon in force. Move fast. Stay quiet. Confirm or deny enemy presence. Then extract before anyone knew they were there. It was textbook. It was routine. It was also based on intelligence that said the area was lightly defended. Lena checked her rifle for the 4th time that hour. A Mark 20 SSR, semi-automatic sniper system, .762 NATO, 20-round magazine, effective range out to 800 meters in the right hands. In her hands, it was a scalpel. She'd logged more hours behind that scope than most people spent in their cars. Every scratch on the stock told a story. Every dent in the barrel was a lesson learned. She scanned the valley herself now, moving her scope slowly across the tree line. Nothing. Just green. Endless, oppressive green. Havoc 6 Overwatch, you are 3 minutes from phase line Delta. No visual on hostiles, no movement detected. Copy Overwatch, proceeding. Ruiz shifted beside her, adjusting his position on the platform. You think command's going to keep us up here much longer? Probably. We're cheap real estate. Why pull us when we're already in position? Because I'm running out of MREs that don't taste like cardboard soaked in regret. Lena exhaled through her nose. All MREs taste like that, Ruiz. Yeah, but some taste like flavored cardboard soaked in regret. She was about to respond when movement caught her eye. Not in the valley. In the trees. A flicker of shadow where shadow shouldn't be. She froze, her breathing slowing instinctively as her focus sharpened. Ruiz, 2 o'clock. Tree line. You see that? He swung his scope over. Silence. Then, yeah, I see it. Personnel? Can't tell. Too much cover. Could be wind. Wind doesn't move like that. Her heart rate ticked up just slightly, enough to notice, enough to matter. She keyed her radio. Havoc 6, overwatch. Possible movement detected northeast of your position, approximately 200 meters. Advise caution. The response came back calm, unbothered. Copy overwatch. We'll keep eyes on it. Continuing to objective. And that was it. No alarm, no course change, just acknowledgement and forward momentum. Because that's what you did. You trusted your training, you trusted your team, you trusted the plan. Lena wanted to trust the plan too, but her gut was screaming now. Atit. Havoc 6 broke through the southern tree line at 0851 hours, moving in a tight tactical column. Lena watched them through her scope. 12 figures in full kit, helmets, rifles up, scanning their sectors as they advanced into the clearing. They moved like water, smooth and deliberate, spacing perfect, overlapping fields of fire. Beautiful, really. Textbook small unit tactics. The kind of thing that looked perfect right up until it didn't. Overwatch, Havoc 6. We are on phase line Delta. Beginning sweep. Copy Havoc 6. Lena's finger hovered near her trigger guard, though she wasn't sure why. Her orders were explicit. Observe, report, provide overwatch in case of contact. But engagement was forbidden unless directly authorized by command. OP7 wasn't a combat position. It was an eye in the sky, nothing more. She watched the team spread out, covering the clearing in overlapping arcs. Standard procedure, professional, controlled, and then the jungle exploded. The first burst of gunfire came from the northeast, exactly where Lena had seen movement. Heavy automatic fire, multiple weapons, converging on the SEAL team from 3 sides at once. Muzzle flashes lit up the tree line like fireworks. Rounds tore through the clearing, kicking up dirt, snapping branches, punching into flesh and body armor with sickening wet slaps. Contact! Contact northeast! They're in the trees! You... Get down! Get down! Get... The radio dissolved into chaos, screaming, gunfire, the sharp crack of grenades. Lena's scope tracked the carnage below, her breath coming faster now, adrenaline slamming into her bloodstream like a freight train. The SEAL team had hit the dirt, returning fire in controlled bursts, but they were pinned. Badly pinned. The enemy had prepared the kill zone perfectly, overlapping fields of fire, covered positions, high ground on 2 sides. The SEALs were caught in the open with nowhere to go. Havoc 6, Overwatch. I count at least 30 hostiles, maybe more. They're dug in. You need to move now. We're trying. West side is blocked, taking fire from... Shit! An explosion rocked the clearing. One of the SEALs went down hard, dragged behind cover by his teammates, as blood spread across his fatigues. Another fighter stumbled, clutching his shoulder, still firing one-handed. The volume of incoming fire was insane. AK-47s, PKMs, RPGs. This wasn't a patrol. This wasn't a skirmish. This was a prepared ambush, and intelligence had missed it completely. Lena's hands tightened on her rifle as she tracked targets through her scope. She could see them now. Enemy fighters moving through the trees, coordinating, massing for a push. Some wore uniforms, some didn't. All of them were armed, disciplined, and way too organized for a ragtag militia. Ruiz, count them. Counting. His voice was tight, focused. 35, 40. Shit, Lena, they keep coming. This isn't random. They were waiting for Havoc. I know. Overwatch, this is Havoc 6. We are taking heavy casualties. Request immediate air support. Lena didn't wait. She punched through to command frequency, her voice clipped and urgent. Overwatch to TOC. Havoc 6 is in a pre-planned ambush. Enemy force strength at least 4-0. They are pinned and taking casualties. Request immediate CAS and medevac. The response came back cold, clinical, a voice she didn't recognize. Overwatch, TOC copies. Stand by for assessment. Negative, TOC. There's no time for assessment. They need air support now. Overwatch, you are ordered to maintain position and observe only. Do not engage. Do not leave your post. Acknowledge. Lena's jaw clenched so hard her teeth ached. TOC, they're going to die down there if we don't... Acknowledge your orders, Overwatch. Silence stretched across the radio. Below, gunfire shredded the air. Men screamed. Blood pooled in the dirt. And somewhere in a climate-controlled operations center 50 miles away, someone was running the math on acceptable losses. Lena keyed her mic one last time. Overwatch copies. Observe only. Do not engage. She released the transmit button, looked at Ruiz. His face was pale, eyes wide, locked on the massacre unfolding below. Lena, what do we do? She didn't answer. Not yet. Because the truth was, she didn't know. Her training said one thing, her orders said another. And her conscience was screaming a third option that could end her career, her freedom, maybe her life. But 12 men were dying, and she was the only one in position to stop it. Bet. The gunfire intensified. Lena tracked the enemy's movements through her scope, squad leaders directing fire, machine gun teams suppressing the SEALs, riflemen maneuvering to flank. It was coordinated, practiced, lethal. Havoc 6, Overwatch, enemy squad moving to your west flank. They're trying to cut off your withdrawal. Copy, we see them, engaging. Frag out. An explosion. Screams. But the enemy kept coming. Lena's breathing was steady now, too steady. The kind of calm that came right before you did something irreversible. Her finger rested on the trigger guard, feather light, waiting. Her scope settled on an enemy fighter directing troops from behind a fallen log. Clearly a squad leader, gesturing, shouting orders. One shot. That's all it would take. One shot to disrupt their coordination. Buy the SEALs a few seconds, maybe a minute. But one shot would also mark her position, violate her orders, change everything. Lena. Ruiz's voice was barely a whisper. We can't just watch. I know. They're gonna die. I know. Her heart hammered, her vision narrowed. The world collapsed down to the reticle in her scope and the man inside it. Squad leader, directing the kill, confident, untouchable. She exhaled slowly, and then command's voice cut through her headset like a knife. All stations, be advised. Air support is delayed due to weather conditions at forward operating base. ETA to target area is 55 minutes. Havoc 6, you are ordered to disengage and move to emergency extraction point Bravo. Acknowledge. 55 minutes. Lena checked her watch. The SEALs had maybe 5. Havoc 6 copies. We are attempting to disengage, taking heavy fire. 2 wounded, 1 critical. The voice on the other end was strained, desperate, breaking. Lena made her decision. She muted command frequency, switched to the SEAL team's direct channel, and when she spoke, her voice was calm, clear, and completely unauthorized. Havoc 6, this is Sergeant Lena Cross, OP7. I have eyes on your position and a firing solution. If you can give me 30 seconds, I can break their command structure and buy you time to move. But I need you to trust me. Do you copy? Silence. Then, who the hell is this? OP7, Sniper Overwatch. I've been watching you since you crossed phase line Charlie. I'm 1,000 meters northeast, elevated position, and I have a clear shot on their squad leaders. Yes or no? Another pause. Gunfire crackled in the background. Someone screamed. We don't have authorization for OP7 to engage. I know. And in about 4 minutes, you're not going to need authorization. You're going to need a miracle. I'm offering you a fighting chance. Take it or leave it. More silence. Longer this time. Then a different voice came through, older, rougher, edged with exhaustion, and something that might have been hope. OP7, this is Havoc 6 actual. If you can do what you say you can do, then do it. We're out of options. Lena felt something unlock in her chest. Not relief, not fear, just clarity. Copy Havoc 6 actual. Stay low. This is going to get loud. She switched frequencies. Looked at Ruiz. Spot for me. I need wind, distance, and target confirmation on every shot. We do this fast, and we do it clean. Understood? Ruiz swallowed hard, nodded. Understood. Good, because we're about to commit treason. She settled into her rifle, her body falling into the familiar rhythm. Breathe, focus, acquire, fire, breathe. She found her first target, the squad leader behind the log. He was still shouting, still directing, still completely unaware that his life had just entered its final seconds. Lena's finger moved from the trigger guard to the trigger itself. Range? 875 meters, wind 2 knots east, target is stationary. Copy. She inhaled, held it, let half out. The reticle settled. The world went silent. And then Sergeant Lena Cross, in direct violation of orders, pulled the trigger. Woken. The rifle kicked. The report echoed through the jungle. And 875 meters away, the enemy squad leader's head snapped back as the round punched through his skull and exited in a spray of red mist. He dropped like a puppet with cut strings. Lena didn't wait to watch. She was already tracking her second target, a machine gunner pouring fire into the SEAL position. Her finger moved. The trigger broke. The gunner collapsed over his weapon. Target down. Next. RPG team, northwest corner, 900 meters. Acquired. Fire. Cycle. Fire. The RPG gunner fell. His loader tried to grab the weapon. Lena shot him too. Below, the enemy force began to fracture. Confusion rippled through their ranks like a shockwave. Leaders were dropping. Weapons were going silent. The organized assault was disintegrating into chaos, and the SEALs felt it. They're breaking. Move, move, move. Suppressing fire. West side. Get Harris up. We're moving. Lena fired again and again. Each shot was deliberate, calculated, final. She wasn't spraying rounds. She was conducting surgery. Cut the head off the snake, remove the gunners, eliminate the coordinators, turn an army into a mob. Target, northeast ridge, marking with, I see him. Fire, down. Target, center mass, directing, got him. Fire, down. Her world narrowed to the rhythm. Breathe, acquire. Fire, breathe. The rifle became an extension of her body, the scope an extension of her eye. She stopped thinking, stopped questioning, just executed. Because 12 men were running for their lives, and she was the only thing standing between them and annihilation. 4 minutes into the engagement, the enemy force broke completely. Lena watched through her scope as fighters abandoned their positions, retreating into the jungle in disorganized clusters. Some tried to drag their wounded, others just ran. The disciplined ambush had collapsed into a rout, and the SEALs were moving, fast, controlled, dragging their casualties with them as they pushed toward the extraction point. Havoc 6, Overwatch, you are clear to move west. Enemy is retreating. I will cover your withdrawal. Copy Overwatch, we are moving. Jesus Christ, who are you? Lena didn't answer. She just kept shooting. Any enemy fighter who tried to rally, who tried to reorganize, who tried to pursue, she put them down. One by one, cold, efficient, merciless. Ruiz called targets. Lena eliminated them. The partnership was seamless, brutal, effective. And then, through the chaos, a new voice cut through her headset. Overwatch, this is talk. What the hell is going on? We are reading weapons fire from your position. Acknowledge immediately. Lena ignored it. Fired again. Reloaded. Overwatch, you're ordered to cease fire and respond. She switched frequencies. Found Havoc 6. Havoc 6, what's your status? We're moving. 2 minutes to extraction point. Still taking sporadic fire, but we're mobile. Overwatch, I don't know what you just did, but you saved our asses. Just keep moving. I'll keep them off you. Copy. And Overwatch? Thank you. Lena's throat tightened. She didn't respond, just tracked another target and fired. 7 minutes after the first shot, the extraction helicopters roared into the valley. 2 Blackhawks, rotors hammering the air, door gunners scanning for threats. The SEALs broke from the tree line in a stumbling run, carrying their wounded, laying down suppressing fire as they moved. Lena covered them every step. Any enemy fighter who showed himself, she dropped. Any attempt to mount a counterattack, she shattered. She was a ghost in the canopy, invisible and untouchable, raining precision death on anyone who threatened her people, because they were her people now. The moment she pulled that trigger, she'd claimed them, owned them, bound herself to their survival in a way that no order or regulation could undo. The first Black Hawk touched down. SEALs piled in, hauling their wounded aboard, still firing as the bird lifted off. The second helicopter landed. More operators loaded. More gunfire. More blood. And then they were gone. The valley fell silent. Lena lowered her rifle. Her hands were shaking now, not from fear, but from the adrenaline draining out of her system like water from a broken dam. She felt cold, hollow, alive in a way that hurt. Ruiz was staring at her, his face pale, his eyes wide. Lena, what did we just do? She didn't answer, just stared at the valley below, at the bodies scattered across the clearing, at the smoke rising from the battlefield. And then Command's voice returned, ice cold and furious. Overwatch. You are ordered to return to forward operating base immediately. Do not acknowledge. Do not delay. Move now. You are in violation of direct orders and will be placed under arrest upon arrival. Acknowledge. Lena closed her eyes, took a breath, and keyed her mic one last time. Overwatch copies, returning to base. She looked at Ruiz. He was still staring at her, waiting for something. Reassurance, maybe, or permission to panic. She gave him neither. Pack it up, we're leaving. Lena, now, Ruiz. He moved. They both did, breaking down the OP, securing their gear, preparing to descend into whatever hell was waiting for them at the bottom of that jungle. Because Sergeant Lena Cross had just saved 12 lives, and she was about to find out what that would cost her. The descent took 40 minutes, and every second of it felt like falling. Lena moved through the jungle on autopilot, her boots finding purchase on roots and rocks without conscious thought. Behind her, Ruiz moved in silence, his breathing harsh and uneven. Neither of them spoke. There was nothing left to say. The radio had gone quiet after that final transmission from Command, but the silence was worse than the shouting. It meant decisions were being made, paperwork was being filed, careers were being ended. The jungle thinned as they approached the rally point, a dirt clearing barely wide enough for a single vehicle. A Humvee waited there, engine idling, exhaust mixing with the humid air. 2 MPs stood beside it, rifles slung but hands resting near their grips. They watched Lena and Ruiz emerge from the tree line with the kind of neutral expression that came from years of escorting people who'd crossed lines they couldn't uncross. The older MP, a staff sergeant with gray at his temples, gestured toward the vehicle. Weapons in the back. Gear stays with you. Lena unslung her rifle, checked the chamber out of habit, and handed it over. The MP took it without comment, his eyes never leaving hers. No judgment, no sympathy, just procedure. Ruiz hesitated, his hands tight on his own weapon. Corporal, the MP said quietly, don't make this harder. Ruiz glanced at Lena. She nodded once. He handed over his rifle. They climbed into the back of the Humvee. The doors slammed shut. The engine growled, and the vehicle lurched forward, bouncing over ruts and rocks as it carved a path through the jungle. No one spoke. The MPS sat up front, eyes forward. Lena stared out the window at the passing trees, her mind already moving ahead, calculating angles, preparing defenses. She'd violated direct orders. That much was undeniable. The question wasn't whether she'd be punished. The question was how severely, and whether the men she'd saved would matter at all when the paperwork hit someone's desk. Beside her, Ruiz finally broke the silence. They gonna court-martial us? Probably. What's the worst they can do? Lena didn't look at him. Article 92. Failure to obey a lawful order. Depending on how they want to play it, anywhere from reduction in rank to dishonorable discharge. Maybe prison time if they decide to make an example. And best case? We get yelled at and sent home. Ruiz let out a breath that might have been a laugh. You think that's going to happen? No. They drove in silence after that. The jungle gave way to open country, then to the sprawling chaos of forward operating base Garrett, a city of tents, prefab buildings, and razor wire carved into the hillside like a scar. Guard towers loomed at each corner. Helicopters squatted on landing pads. Soldiers moved between structures with the exhausted efficiency of people who'd been deployed too long. The Humvee pulled up to a low concrete building near the command center. The MPs climbed out first, opened the doors, and gestured for Lena and Ruiz to follow. Inside, the air was cold, air-conditioned to the point of discomfort. Fluorescent lights hummed overhead. A long hallway stretched ahead, doors on either side, each one labeled with stenciled numbers and acronyms. The older MP led them to a door marked Holding and unlocked it with a key from his belt. Wait here. Someone will be down to talk to you. Lena stepped inside. The room was small, windowless, containing only a metal table and 4 chairs. Ruiz followed, and the door closed behind them with a hollow click. The lock engaged. They sat, waited. The clock on the wall ticked forward, each second stretching longer than the last. Ruiz leaned back in his chair, staring at the ceiling. How long you think they'll make us wait? However long it takes to decide what they want to do with us. You scared? Lena considered the question. Fear would have been rational, appropriate even, but what she felt wasn't fear, it was something colder, more certain. No. Why not? Because I'd do it again. Ruiz looked at her then, something like admiration in his eyes, or maybe just disbelief. Even knowing this was coming, especially knowing this was coming. The door opened before Ruiz could respond. A captain stepped inside, mid-30s, clean uniform, the kind of tired eyes that came from too many deployments and too much coffee. He carried a folder under one arm and a tablet in his hand. Behind him, a lieutenant followed, younger, sharper, taking up position near the door like a guard dog. The captain sat down across from Lena and Ruiz, opened the folder, scanned the contents without looking up. Sergeant Cross, Corporal Ruiz. His voice was flat, administrative. I'm Captain Hayes. I'm here to take your statements regarding the incident at OP7 this morning. Lena met his eyes. Are we under arrest? Not yet, but you're both confined to base pending investigation. He tapped the tablet, pulling up a document. Let's start with the basics. At approximately 0855 hours, you engaged hostile forces from your observation post despite direct orders to observe only. Is that correct? Yes, sir. And you did so without authorization from Tactical Operations Command? Yes, sir. Hayes leaned back, studying her. Why? Because Havoc 6 was going to die if I didn't. That's not your call to make, Sergeant. You had orders. I had a rifle and a clear shot. Havoc 6 had seconds. I made a judgment call. A judgment call. Hayes repeated the words slowly, like he was tasting them. You abandoned your post, violated operational security, and engaged enemy forces in a manner that could have compromised not only your position, but the entire mission profile. And you're calling that a judgment call? Lena's jaw tightened. With respect, sir, the mission profile went to shit the moment Havoc 6 walked into a prepared ambush that intelligence missed. I adapted to reality. You disobeyed a direct order. I saved 12 men. That's not the point. Then what is the point, sir? Hayes closed the folder, set it on the table between them. When he spoke again, his voice was quieter, but no less sharp. The point, Sergeant, is that we have rules for a reason. Chain of command exists because chaos gets people killed. You might have saved Havoc 6 today, but what happens tomorrow when some other sergeant decides their judgment is better than their orders? What happens when the entire operational structure breaks down because everyone thinks they know better? Lena said nothing. There was nothing to say. He wasn't wrong. She just didn't care. Hayes stood. You'll both remain here until the investigating officer is ready to speak with you. Could be an hour, could be longer. I suggest you use the time to think very carefully about how you want to frame your actions when you're sitting in front of a board. He left. The lieutenant followed. The door locked again. Ruiz exhaled slowly. Well, that went great. Lena didn't respond. She stared at the table, her mind running through scenarios, outcomes, possibilities. None of them ended well, but she'd known that the moment she pulled the trigger. Some choices didn't come with happy endings. They just came with consequences. And she'd accepted hers the moment she decided 12 lives mattered more than her career. The hours crawled by. No one came. No one spoke. The fluorescent lights buzzed overhead like dying insects. Lena counted ceiling tiles. Ruiz tapped his fingers on the table. Time became a weight, pressing down, suffocating. And then, finally, the door opened again. But it wasn't Captain Hayes. It was a colonel. Lena and Ruiz shot to their feet, snapping to attention as the officer stepped inside. He was older, maybe 50, with the kind of face that had seen too many wars and buried too many soldiers. His uniform was crisp, his boots polished, his bearing that of a man who didn't tolerate weakness or excuses. At ease, his voice was gravel and smoke. Sit. They sat. The colonel remained standing, arms crossed, eyes moving between them like a predator assessing prey. I'm Colonel Marcus Vorenus. I run operations for this sector. He paused, letting the weight of that settle. I've spent the last 4 hours reading reports, listening to radio intercepts, and reviewing tactical footage. And I've also spent the last hour on the phone with some very angry people who want your heads on a platter. Lena's stomach tightened, but she kept her face neutral. Vorenus continued, "What you did today was reckless, unauthorized, and a violation of at least 3 articles of the UCMJ." He leaned forward, palms flat on the table. It was also the only reason 12 operators are alive right now instead of being zipped into body bags. Silence. Havoc 6's team leader called me personally, said you were the only thing standing between his men and annihilation, said he'd testify to that effect at any board, any hearing, any court-martial we want to throw at you. Vorenus straightened. So here's the situation. Officially, you're facing disciplinary action. Officially, you violated orders and there will be consequences. But unofficially? He almost smiled. Almost. Unofficially, you did exactly what a soldier is supposed to do when the plan falls apart. You adapted. You acted. You saved lives. Lena didn't move, didn't breathe. Vorenus pulled out a chair and sat down, his eyes never leaving hers. I'm not going to court-martial you, Sergeant, but I'm also not going to let this slide. You're being reassigned. Effective immediately, you're attached to a new unit, direct action support. You'll be embedded with teams in the field providing precision fire support during high-risk operations. It's dangerous work. It's exhausting work. And if you screw up, people die. He paused. But if you're as good as Havoc 6 says you are, then you'll save a lot more lives than you'll cost. Lena's throat was dry. Sir, I don't understand. You proved today that you can make the hard call when it matters. That's rare. Most soldiers follow orders and hope for the best. But the operators I work with, they need someone who can think, someone who can shoot, someone who won't hesitate when hesitation means death. Vorenus leaned back. That's you, whether you like it or not. Ruiz spoke for the first time. What about me, sir? Vorenus glanced at him. You spotted for her. You didn't pull the trigger, but you enabled it. That makes you complicit. He paused. You're being reassigned too. Same unit, same mission. You want to turn it down? Now's the time to say so. Ruiz looked at Lena, then back at Vorenus. I'm in, sir. Vorenus nodded, stood. Good. You'll ship out in 72 hours. Use the time to get your shit together. And Sergeant? He looked at Lena one last time. Don't make me regret this. He left. The door closed. Lena sat frozen, her mind struggling to process what had just happened. She'd expected punishment, dishonor, the end of everything she'd worked for. Instead, she'd been given a second chance, or maybe a death sentence. Ruiz let out a shaky laugh. Holy shit! We're not getting court-martialed. No, we're getting sentenced to worse. You think? Lena finally looked at him. He said direct action support. That's not a reward, Ruiz. That's putting us exactly where the fighting is worst, so we can prove we're worth keeping. One mistake, and we're done. Or we save more lives and become legends. Or we die trying. Ruiz grinned despite himself. Either way, beats a desk job. Lena couldn't argue with that. The next 72 hours blurred together. Lena packed her gear, said quiet goodbyes to the few people at the FOB who knew her, and tried not to think too hard about what she was walking into. Ruiz did the same, though he handled it with his usual dark humor and an alarming amount of optimism. On the third day, they boarded a transport helicopter heading east toward a base Lena had only heard about in whispers, Camp Wraith. It wasn't on most maps, it didn't officially exist, and the people stationed there didn't talk about what they did. The helicopter touched down on a landing pad surrounded by razor wire and watchtowers. Lena climbed out, her boots hitting the tarmac as the rotors whined down. The base was smaller than Garrett, more compact, built for efficiency rather than comfort. Every structure looked temporary, like the whole place could be packed up and moved in a matter of hours. A man waited near the edge of the pad, tall, broad-shouldered, wearing fatigues with no rank insignia. His face was hard, weathered, the kind of face that had seen too much and remembered all of it. He looked at Lena and Ruiz with the kind of appraisal that made her feel like an insect under a microscope. Cross, Ruiz. His voice was rough. Clipped. I'm Sergeant Major Cade. You belong to me now. Lena straightened. Yes, Sergeant Major. Cade gestured toward a cluster of buildings. Drop your gear in Building 3. You've got 20 minutes. Then report to the briefing room. We've got a mission spinning up, and you're on it. Sergeant Major, we just got here. And now you're working. Move. They moved. Building 3 was a barracks, narrow bunks, metal lockers, no decoration. Lena threw her pack on an empty bunk and started unpacking essentials. Ruiz did the same, muttering under his breath. 20 minutes. We just got off a helicopter. This guy's insane. He's testing us. Testing us for what? To see if we break. 15 minutes later, they stood outside the briefing room. Lena knocked once, then entered. The room was small, dominated by a table covered in maps, photographs, and satellite images. 4 other soldiers sat around it, operators by the look of them, quiet, lean, the kind of men who didn't waste words or energy. Cade stood at the head of the table, arms crossed. Cross? Ruiz, sit. They sat. Cade tapped one of the maps, a valley similar to the one where Lena had fought, but deeper, more remote. Target is a supply depot 15 clicks northwest of here. Intelligence says it's lightly defended. We're going in tonight to confirm, and if possible, destroy it. He looked at Lena. You'll provide overwatch from the ridge, same job as before. Watch, report, and if things go sideways, you put down anyone who threatens the team. One of the operators spoke, a lieutenant, lean and scarred. She authorized to engage this time? Cade's eyes didn't leave Lena. If I give the order, yes. If I don't, no. Clear? Clear, Sergeant Major. Good. Cade straightened. We move at 2,100 hours. Brief your gear, check your comms, and be ready. This isn't a training op. You screw up, people die. Questions? No one spoke. Dismissed. The operators filed out. Lena and Ruiz remained seated. Cade waited until the room was empty, then leaned against the table. I read the report from OP7. I know what you did. And I know why you're here. His voice dropped. Varenas thinks you've got potential. Me? I think you got lucky. So here's how this works. You do your job. You follow orders. You prove you're worth the risk he took on you. Or you wash out, and I send you back to wherever the hell you came from. Understood? Lena met his eyes. Understood, Sergeant Major. Good. Now get out of my sight. They left. Outside, Ruiz exhaled hard. That guy makes Captain Hayes look like a teddy bear. Lena said nothing. She was already thinking ahead. Mission profile, terrain, wind conditions, firing solutions. The same calculations she'd run 100 times before. But this time, the stakes were different. This time, she had something to prove. And failure wasn't an option. The mission launched at 2100 hours sharp. Lena moved through the darkness with the team, her rifle slung across her back, night vision turning the world into shades of green. They moved in silence, every step deliberate, every breath controlled. 2 hours into the march, they reached the ridge. Lena and Ruiz broke off, climbing to their overwatch position while the operators continued toward the valley below. She set up quickly. Rifle braced, scope adjusted, comms checked. Below the supply depot sat dark and quiet, a cluster of buildings and vehicles barely visible in the shadows. Overwatch in position, Lena whispered into her mic. Copy Overwatch. Stand by. She watched, waited. Her finger rested near the trigger, her breathing slow and even. And then, from the valley below, movement. Too much movement. Overwatch to ground team. I count multiple hostiles converging on your position from the north. This isn't light defense, it's a... Contact! Gunfire erupted. Muzzle flashes lit up the night, and Lena realized with cold certainty that intelligence had been wrong again. The operators were walking into another ambush, and this time she had authorization to stop it. Her finger moved to the trigger, and the night exploded with precision fire. The first shot shattered the silence like breaking glass. Lena's rifle barked, the suppressor muffling the report to a harsh crack that barely carried beyond the ridgeline. 800 meters downrange, an enemy fighter directing troops from behind a technical truck jerked backward, his chest blooming red before he collapsed into the dirt. His radio clattered from his hand, still transmitting orders to men who would never receive another command from him. Lena didn't watch him fall. She was already tracking Target 2, a machine gunner swinging his PKM toward the operators pinned behind a stack of fuel drums. Her crosshairs settled on his torso. Exhale. Squeeze. The gunner's body twisted as the round punched through his ribcage, and he tumbled sideways off his firing position. "Target down next," Ruiz murmured beside her, his voice steady despite the chaos erupting below. "RPG team, northeast corner, 750 meters." Lena shifted, found them. Two fighters crouched behind sandbags, one loading a warhead, while the other sighted down the tube at the operator's position. She put a round through the loader's skull. The rocket dropped. The gunner scrambled to grab it. Lena shot him through the neck. Below, Cade's voice cut through the radio, sharp and controlled despite the gunfire tearing apart the night around him. "Overwatch, you are weapons free. I need suppression on the northern compound. Multiple hostiles massing for assault. Copy. Engaging." Lena's world collapsed to the scope, the reticle, the rhythm. Breathe, acquire, fire, cycle. Breathe. Her hands moved without thought, muscle memory carved deep from thousands of hours on the range. The rifle became part of her body, an extension of her will, and every trigger pull was a surgical strike removing pieces from the enemy's capability to fight. Ruiz called wins, distances, corrections. Lena executed. They'd fallen into the synchronization that made sniper teams lethal, two minds operating as one, no wasted words, no hesitation. Three hostiles breaking from cover, western structure, attempting to flank. Lena was already swinging her rifle before he finished the sentence. Found the first runner. Fired. He went down hard, tumbling face first into the dirt. The second hesitated, looking for the source of the shot. Fatal mistake. Lena put a round through his center mass. The third dove for cover, but not fast enough. Her bullet caught him mid-dive, spinning him sideways into a wall where he crumpled and didn't move. "Northwest Watchtower, sniper emplacement, they're trying to acquire you." "I see him." The enemy sniper was good. He'd positioned himself well, using the tower's shadow and a camouflage tarp to break up his silhouette. But good wasn't good enough. Lena could see the faint outline of his scope, the barely visible shape of his rifle barrel. She adjusted for wind, for distance, for the slight elevation difference, and fired. The enemy sniper's head snapped back. His rifle clattered from the tower. Problem solved. Below, the operators were moving now, using the chaos Lena created to advance toward their objective. They moved like ghosts, fast, low, covering each other in overlapping arcs. Every time an enemy fighter tried to organize a defense, Lena removed them from the equation. Squad leaders, machine gunners, radio operators, anyone who looked like they knew what they were doing died first. The enemy force was disintegrating. What had started as a coordinated ambush was devolving into panic and confusion. Fighters were abandoning positions, retreating into buildings, some even fleeing into the jungle beyond the compound. "Ground team to Overwatch. We are advancing to primary objective. Continue suppression." "Copy, ground team." Lena fired again, and again. Her magazine ran dry. She dropped it, slapped in a fresh one, charged the bolt, and was back in the fight in under 3 seconds. Beside her, Ruiz tracked targets with mechanical precision, calling them out in a steady monotone that kept her focused, kept her lethal. "Two hostiles, rooftop, eastern building." Fire. Down. Vehicle moving, technical with mounted gun, trying to reposition. Lena tracked the truck as it bounced across the compound, put a round through the windshield. The driver slumped. The truck veered, crashed into a wall, and the gunner in the back tumbled out, scrambling for cover. Lena shot him before his feet hit the ground. The fight was becoming a massacre. One-sided, brutal, efficient, and then everything changed. Ground team, break contact now. We have armor inbound from the south. Repeat, armor inbound." Lena's blood went cold. She swung her scope toward the southern approach and felt her stomach drop. Two BTR-80s were rolling into the compound, their 8-wheeled frames churning up dust as their turrets swiveled toward the operator's position. Infantry dismounted from the rear hatches, at least a dozen fighters moving with the kind of discipline that marked professional soldiers, not militia. This wasn't local defense. This was a rapid reaction force. and the operators were about to be crushed. Cade's voice came through, clipped and hard. Overwatch, can you engage the armor? Lena stared at the BTRs through her scope. Her rifle fired 7.62 NATO. The BTRs had 14 millimeters of frontal armor. Her rounds would bounce off like thrown pebbles. Negative, ground team. I can't penetrate. Then engage the infantry and keep them off us while we extract. All units fall back to Rally Point Charlie. We are aborting. The operators broke contact, laying down suppressing fire as they retreated in bounds. The enemy infantry advanced behind the BTRs, using the armored vehicles as mobile cover, and there was nothing Lena could do to stop them. Or was there? She shifted her aim, ignoring the BTRs themselves, focusing on the infantry moving in their shadow. Found a soldier barking orders into a radio. Another commander. Fired. He dropped. The advance stuttered as men looked for cover, uncertain without leadership. Ruiz, call every fighter outside the BTR's protective arc. I'm going to pin them down. Copy. Lena worked the flanks, targeting anyone who tried to move around the armored vehicles. She couldn't kill the BTRs, but she could kill the men supporting them, could slow their advance, buy the operators seconds that might add up to survival. One of the BTRs opened fire, its 14.5 millimeter heavy machine gun ripping into the position the operators had just abandoned, shredding fuel drums and sandbags into scrap metal and dust. The second BTR rotated its turret, searching for threats. Searching for her. Lena, they're scanning for your position. You need to displace. Not yet. She fired again, dropping another infantryman. The BTR's turret swung further in her direction. She could see the gunner inside, barely visible through the firing port, trying to triangulate her location based on muzzle flash and trajectory. Lena, move! The BTR's gun opened up, tracers arcing toward the ridgeline. Rounds snapped through the air overhead, tearing branches from trees, kicking up dirt and rock. Lena rolled left, putting a boulder between herself and the incoming fire as the ridgeline exploded in a hail of heavy-caliber rounds. Ruiz was already moving, grabbing their gear, scrambling toward cover. Lena crawled after him, keeping low as the BTR walked fire across their former position, turning it into a moonscape of craters and shredded vegetation. They relocated 30 meters north, found new cover behind a fallen tree, and Lena was back in her scope before the BTR stopped firing. Ground team, what's your status? We're mobile, 200 meters from Rally Point, but they're pursuing Overwatch. We need you to slow them down. Lena found the infantry again. They'd advanced during the BTR's suppression, using the covering fire to close distance. She started shooting again, methodical, relentless. Every time a soldier broke cover, she killed them. Every time someone tried to coordinate, she removed them from existence. The BTRs kept coming, but their infantry screen was thinning, dying. The advance slowed, and the operators reached the rally point. Ground team is at extraction. Overwatch, fall back now. Choppers inbound in 3 minutes. Lena fired one more shot, then pulled back from her rifle. She and Ruiz broke down their position in seconds, grabbing only essentials, rifle, ammo, radio. Everything else stayed behind. They were already moving when the BTRs opened fire again, shells screaming overhead as they sprinted down the reverse slope of the ridge. The jungle swallowed them. Branches whipped at their faces. Roots tried to trip them. But they'd trained for this, moving fast through hostile terrain, evading pursuit, staying ahead of death. Behind them, the BTRs ground to a halt at the base of the ridge, too steep to climb, too exposed to risk dismounting infantry in sniper country. Lena and Ruiz hit the rally point just as the helicopters descended, 2 Blackhawks, rotors thundering, door gunners scanning for threats. The operators were already loading, dragging equipment, counting heads. Cade grabbed Lena's arm as she ran past, pulling her close so she could hear him over the rotor wash. That was good work, Cross. You bought us the time we needed. She nodded, too out of breath to respond. Now get on the bird before those BTRs find a way around that ridge. They climbed aboard. The helicopter lifted immediately, banking hard as it gained altitude. Through the open door, Lena could see the compound shrinking below, fires burning, bodies scattered, the BTRs sitting impotent at the base of the ridge. The mission had been a failure. The depot was still intact. Intelligence had been wrong again. But everyone was alive, and that, apparently, was what victory looked like now. The flight back to Camp Wraith took 30 minutes. No one spoke. The operators sat in exhausted silence, checking weapons, cleaning blood off their gear, staring at nothing. Lena watched them, these quiet professionals who'd walked into hell and walked back out, and wondered if she'd ever be as calm as they were. Ruiz leaned close, shouting over the noise. "You think Cade's happy with us?" "I think Cade's never happy." "Fair point." The helicopter touched down. They unloaded in silence, handed their weapons to the armory, and stumbled toward the barracks. Lena's entire body ached, muscles screaming, joints stiff, adrenaline crash hitting like a freight train. She made it to her bunk, dropped her pack, and sat down hard. Ruiz collapsed on the bunk across from her. "We just got shot at by armored vehicles." "Yeah." "And you stopped an entire infantry assault with a rifle." "Yeah." "We're either really good or really lucky." "Probably both." He laughed, a short, exhausted sound. "I'm going to sleep for a week." "You've got 4 hours. Cade said debrief at 0600. "I hate this place." "You love this place." Ruiz didn't argue. He was already asleep. Lena lay back on her bunk, staring at the ceiling. Her mind was still running hot, replaying shots, calculating what she could have done better, cataloging mistakes. The enemy sniper in the tower had almost acquired her. The BTRs had forced a displacement that cost her precious seconds. She'd burned through ammunition faster than she should have. But 12 more men were alive, and that was the only metric that mattered. She closed her eyes, tried to sleep, failed. 4 hours later, she sat in the briefing room again, this time surrounded by the full team. Cade stood at the head of the table, reviewing after-action reports with the kind of focus that made everyone sit straighter. "Intelligence failed us again," he said without preamble. What was supposed to be a lightly defended supply depot turned out to be a staging area for a mechanized unit. That's twice in 1 week Command has sent teams into situations they weren't prepared for. One of the operators, a staff sergeant named Chen, spoke up. "So what do we do about it?" "We adapt." Cade looked at Lena. "Cross proved last night that precision fire support can shift the balance even when we're outnumbered and outgunned. Moving forward, she's embedded with every high-risk operation we run. No exceptions." Lena's throat tightened. "Sergeant Major, I'm not asking, Cross, I'm telling. You've got a skill set we need. Use it or get out." She swallowed, nodded. "Yes, Sergeant Major." "Good. Next mission spins up in 48 hours. Different target, same risk profile. Dismissed." The team filed out. Lena stayed behind, waiting until the room was empty before approaching Cade. "Sergeant Major, can I ask you something?" He didn't look up from his reports. "Make it fast." "Why are you trusting me? You said yourself you thought I got lucky at OP7. Cade set down his pen, looked at her with those hard, weathered eyes. "I said that to see if you'd fold under pressure. You didn't. You went out there and did the job again, better this time, under worse conditions." He leaned back in his chair. "Luck runs out, Cross. Skill doesn't. You've got skill. Now prove you've got the discipline to use it right. And if I don't, then you'll die. Or worse, you'll get someone else killed." He picked up his pen again. "Now get out. You've got 48 hours to prepare, and I suggest you use them." Lena left. The next 2 days blurred together. Training, equipment checks, mission briefs. The target was a weapons cache hidden in a mountain village 3 valleys over. Intelligence said minimal resistance. Lena didn't believe it. Neither did anyone else. They launched at dusk, moving under the cover of fading light. Lena and Ruiz took up position on a mountainside overlooking the village, setting up in a natural hide between 2 boulders. The view was perfect. Clear lines of sight, elevation advantage, multiple escape routes. The operators moved in below, slipping through shadows like they were born to it. And for the first hour, everything went according to plan. Then the village lit up. Not with gunfire, with lights. Floodlights mounted on poles, generators roaring to life, illuminating the entire area like a stadium. Lena's blood ran cold. "Ground team, you're exposed. They knew you were coming. Get out!" But it was too late. Heavy weapons opened up from concealed positions. Mortars, machine guns, RPGs. The village became a kill box, and the operators were trapped in the center of it. Lena started firing, but there were too many targets, too much incoming fire, too much chaos. And then she saw them. Three technical trucks racing toward the village from the north, each one carrying fighters armed with modern weapons and wearing matching uniforms. This wasn't militia. This was something else. Something worse. Ground team, you have reinforcements inbound, at least 30 hostiles. You need to break contact now. Cade's voice came back strained, breathless. We're pinned. Can't move. Overwatch. We need fire support. Lena fired as fast as she could pull the trigger, dropping targets one after another, but it wasn't enough. The enemy was too prepared, too coordinated, too many. And then one of the operators went down, then another. Man down. We need medevac. Ruiz grabbed her arm. Lena, we can't stop this. We need to call in air support. Air support is 20 minutes out. They don't have 20 minutes. Then what do we do? Lena stared through her scope at the carnage below, at the men dying because intelligence had failed again, because someone somewhere had decided their lives were acceptable losses, and she made a choice. I'm going down there. Ruiz stared at her. What? I'm going down there, close range. I can disrupt their command structure, buy the team time to extract. That's suicide. Oops. So is staying here and watching them die. She grabbed her rifle, started breaking down her position. You stay here, provide overwatch, cover my movement. Lena, this is insane. I know. Do it anyway. She was moving before he could argue further, sliding down the mountainside, using the terrain as cover as she descended toward the village. Her rifle was slung across her back now, her sidearm in her hand, a Glock 19, 15 rounds, close-quarters weapon. She hit the outskirts of the village and started moving through the chaos, using smoke and darkness and confusion as camouflage. Found a position behind a stone wall, brought her rifle up, and started engaging targets at point-blank range. The enemy never saw her coming. She shot a mortar team from 30 meters, killed a machine gun crew from 40, put down 3 fighters trying to flank the operators before they even knew she was there. And the entire dynamic of the fight shifted. The enemy thought they were fighting a trapped team. Now they were fighting a ghost in their midst, killing from angles they couldn't predict, disrupting every attempt at coordination. Lena moved like smoke, never staying in one position long enough to be targeted. Shoot, displace, shoot, displace. Her training took over, her body operating on instinct honed over years of drilling the same movements until they became automatic. Above, Ruiz provided cover, his shots keeping enemy fighters from pursuing her, creating corridors she could move through. And the operators used the chaos to break out, dragging their wounded, fighting their way toward the extraction point. But Lena was running out of ammunition, and the enemy was adapting. She ducked behind a building as gunfire chewed through the wall above her head. Reloaded. 3 magazines left. Maybe 60 rounds total. Not enough. Her radio crackled. Cade's voice. Urgent. Overwatch? Ground team is moving to extract. Fall back now. Copy. Moving. She broke from cover, sprinting toward the village edge. Gunfire followed her, rounds snapping past her head, punching into the ground at her feet. She dove behind a water trough, caught her breath, looked for her next move, and saw a fighter with an RPG aiming directly at the operator's escape route. No time to think. She brought her rifle up, fired from an unstable position. The shot went wide. The fighter adjusted his aim. Lena fired again, hit him in the shoulder. He dropped the RPG, but another fighter grabbed it, started to aim. She was out of time, out of position, out of luck. And then the mountainside above erupted in fire. Artillery, close air support. Someone had called in the cavalry, and the entire northern approach to the village disappeared in a curtain of high explosive and white phosphorus. The enemy broke, scattered, fled, and Lena ran. She hit the extraction point just as the helicopters descended. The operators were loading, bloody, exhausted, some unconscious. Cade grabbed her, hauled her aboard. That was the stupidest, bravest thing I've ever seen, he shouted over the rotors. Did everyone make it? 2 critical, 1 stable. But yeah, everyone's alive. The helicopter lifted. Lena collapsed against the bulkhead, her rifle across her lap, her hands shaking now that the adrenaline was fading. She'd done it again, saved them again. And she had no idea if that made her a hero or just someone too stubborn to let good people die. But as the helicopter carried them back towards safety, one of the wounded operators, a kid barely old enough to shave, looked at her through pain-glazed eyes, and whispered 2 words. "Thank you." And Lena realized something. She wasn't fighting for medals, for recognition, for redemption. She was fighting because someone had to. The helicopter banked hard, and through the open door she saw flames consuming the village below. Somewhere in a command center, someone was already writing the after-action report, cataloging another intelligence failure, another close call, but 12 more men were breathing. And command was about to learn that Sergeant Lena Cross wasn't going anywhere. Whether they liked it or not, the medical bay smelled like disinfectant and blood. Lena stood outside the doorway, watching medics work on the 2 critical casualties from the village operation. One was unconscious, intubated, his chest rising and falling to the rhythm of a ventilator. The other was awake but sedated, his eyes unfocused as a corpsman stitched a ragged shoulder wound. Both were alive. Barely. But alive meant everything. A hand touched her shoulder. She turned to find Cade standing beside her, his face grim. "They'll make it," he said quietly. "Thanks to you." Lena didn't know how to respond to that. She'd spent her entire career being invisible. The observer, the watcher, the one people forgot was even there. Now she was standing in the center of everything, and the weight of all those eyes felt heavier than any rifle. "I need you to come with me," Cade continued. "Command wants to talk." Her stomach tightened. "About what?" "About why our intelligence keeps failing, and why you keep pulling our asses out of the fire when it does." They walked across the compound in silence. The base was quieter now, the pre-dawn darkness broken only by scattered floodlights and the low hum of generators. Soldiers moved between buildings like shadows, preparing for another day of operations that might go wrong in ways no one could predict. Cade led her to a building she hadn't been inside before, larger than the others, reinforced concrete, guards posted at the entrance. They checked IDs, nodded, and stepped aside. Inside was a war room. Maps covered every wall, satellite images pinned alongside reconnaissance photos. A large table dominated the center, surrounded by officers she didn't recognize. At the head of the table sat Colonel Voronus, his expression unreadable, and beside him sat someone Lena had never seen before, a man in civilian clothes, mid-40s, with the kind of face that belonged behind a desk rather than a rifle. His eyes tracked her as she entered, analytical and cold. "Sergeant Cross," Voronus said. "This is Thomas Garrett. He's with the Defense Intelligence Agency." Garrett didn't offer a hand, just studied her like she was a data point in need of analysis. "Sergeant, I've been reviewing your recent operations. Impressive work." "Thank you, sir." "I'm not complimenting you. I'm stating a fact." Garrett leaned back in his chair. "In the past 2 weeks, you've been involved in 3 separate combat operations. All 3 were based on intelligence assessments that turned out to be catastrophically wrong, and all 3 would have resulted in mass casualties if not for your intervention." Lena said nothing. There was nothing to say. Garrett continued, "That's not coincidence. That's pattern. And patterns indicate systemic failure." Voronus spoke up. "What are you suggesting, Garrett?" "I'm suggesting that someone is feeding us bad intelligence, deliberately." The room went silent. One of the officers at the table, a major Lena didn't know, cleared his throat. "You're talking about a leak. Inside our own operational chain." "I'm talking about sabotage." Garrett pulled out a tablet, tapped it, and projected an image onto the wall. A network diagram showing communication nodes, data flows, intelligence channels. Every operation that's gone sideways in the past month has one thing in common. All the intelligence came through the same analyst at Regional Command, Captain Edward Merrick. Lena felt something cold settle in her chest. Voronus frowned. "Merrick's been with us for 3 years. His record is clean. His record is fabricated." Garrett pulled up another image. Financial transactions, offshore accounts, encrypted communications. He's been selling operational details to a local insurgent network. They've been using that information to pre-position forces, set ambushes, and maximize casualties. The major stood abruptly. "You're telling me our own people have been feeding us into kill zones on purpose?" "That's exactly what I'm telling you." Cade's voice was quiet, dangerous. "How long have you known?" "I started tracking anomalies 2 weeks ago, confirmed it 4 days ago. I've been waiting for enough evidence to move without tipping him off." Garrett looked at Lena. And then Sergeant Cross kept disrupting his plans. Every ambush that should have worked didn't. Every operation that should have failed succeeded. She became a problem he couldn't account for. Lena's hands clenched into fists. He sent those teams to die. Deliberately. Yes. And you let it happen while you gathered evidence. Garrett's expression didn't change. I let it happen while I built a case that will hold up in a court-martial and expose everyone in his network. If I'd moved too soon, we'd have arrested one analyst and missed the bigger picture. People died while you built your case. People would have died anyway. At least this way we get to cut the rot out completely. Lena took a step forward. Cade put a hand on her arm, holding her back. Vorenus stood. Where is Merrick now? Under surveillance at Regional Command. We're moving to arrest him in 6 hours, pending final authorization from Theater Command. Make it 3 hours. I want him in custody before he realizes we're on to him. Garrett nodded. Understood. But there's a complication. There always is. Merrick knows someone's been interfering with his operations. He doesn't know who, but he knows the pattern changed when Sergeant Cross started operating in the field. Garrett looked at Lena again. He's been asking questions, quietly, trying to identify the variable that keeps ruining his ambushes. Cade's grip on Lena's arm tightened. You think he'll come after her? I think he's desperate, and desperate people make mistakes. Vorenus crossed his arms. So what do you need from us? I need Sergeant Cross visible, active. I need Merrick to see her as the threat she is. And when he moves against her, we take him and everyone he's working with. Lena's voice was flat. You want to use me as bait. I want to use you as the trap. She looked at Vorenus. The colonel's face was stone, but his eyes held something that might have been regret. Your call, Sergeant, Vorenus said quietly. You've done enough. No one would blame you for sitting this one out. Lena thought about the men in the medical bay, about Havoc 6 in the jungle, about every operator who'd walked into an ambush because someone decided their lives were worth less than money or ideology, or whatever the hell Merrick had sold them for. When do we start? Garrett almost smiled. Tomorrow. We're running another operation, this one legitimate, no contaminated intelligence. You'll be on overwatch as usual. Merrick will see the mission brief. And if he's planning to move against you, that's when he'll do it. And you'll be ready. We'll be ready. The briefing ended. Officers filed out. Lena stood alone with Cade in the empty war room, staring at the maps on the walls. You don't have to do this, Cade said. Yeah, I do. Why? She turned to face him. Because if I don't, he wins. And every person who died because of him died for nothing. Cade studied her for a long moment, then nodded. All right, but you're not doing it alone. I'm assigning a security detail to shadow you, and Ruiz stays with you at all times. I don't need, not negotiable, Cross. You're valuable. That means you're protected. Deal with it. She wanted to argue, didn't, just nodded. Good. Now get some sleep. Tomorrow's going to be a long day. Lena left the war room and walked back to the barracks. The sun was rising now, painting the eastern sky in shades of orange and red. Soldiers were emerging for morning PT, their voices low and tired. The base was waking up to another day of war. She found Ruiz already awake, cleaning his rifle on his bunk. Heard we've got another op tomorrow, he said, without looking up. Yeah. Heard it's a trap for a traitor. Yeah. He set down his cleaning rod, looked at her. You good with this? Lena sat on her bunk. I don't know. Ask me when it's over. Fair enough? He went back to cleaning. For what it's worth, I'm glad you're the bait and not me. You're scary when you're angry. I'm not angry. Lena, you've been angry since we left OP7. You're just really good at pretending you're not. She didn't deny it. Couldn't, because he was right. Beneath the calm, beneath the professionalism, beneath everything she showed the world, there was a cold fury that had been building since the moment she'd been ordered to watch good men die. And tomorrow, that fury was going to find a target. The operation launched at 1400 hours. The objective was a suspected weapons storage site 20 kilometers northeast. Real target, real intelligence, real mission. Lena and Ruiz took up overwatch position on a hillside with clear sight lines to the compound below. Two operators from Cade's team accompanied them, taking up security positions 50 meters back. The mission proceeded without incident. The operators moved in, secured the site, confirmed enemy weapons caches, and called for demolition teams. Standard. Professional. Exactly as planned. Too exactly. Lena scanned the surrounding terrain through her scope, searching for anything out of place. Garrett had said Merrick would move if he was going to. But so far, nothing. No suspicious movement, no threats, just a textbook operation going textbook smooth. Maybe he's smarter than we thought, Ruiz murmured beside her. Or maybe he's waiting for us to relax. Always the optimist. An hour into the operation, Lena's radio crackled. Not the tactical frequency, the command channel. Overwatch, this is TOC. We have new intelligence indicating possible enemy reinforcements approaching your sector from the west. Recommend you reposition to maintain observation. Lena's blood went cold. That voice, she didn't recognize it. TOC, Overwatch. Confirm identity of speaker. A pause. Then, this is Captain Merrick, Operations Officer. Recommend immediate repositioning to Grid Alpha 79er. Lena looked at Ruiz. His face had gone pale. Grid Alpha 79er was a ravine. Steep walls, single entrance, perfect kill zone. TOC, Overwatch. Request confirmation from Ground Team Commander before repositioning. Negative, Overwatch. Ground Team is engaged. You are ordered to move now to maintain operational security. Lena muted her radio, looked at the two security operators behind her, made a hand signal. They understood immediately, melting into the terrain, circling around to cover their flanks. She keyed a different frequency. Direct to Cade. Ground Team Actual, Overwatch. Did you request intelligence update on enemy reinforcements? Cade's response was immediate. Negative. We have no indication of enemy movement. What's going on? Merrick just tried to order me into a kill zone. Silence. Then, stand by. Lena waited, her rifle tracking the approaches to their position. Beside her, Ruiz had his weapon up, scanning sectors. 30 seconds later, Garrett's voice came through a secure channel. Overwatch, Garrett. We just intercepted a coded transmission from Merrick's station to an unknown recipient. He's activated his network. You need to hold position and wait for backup. How long? 15 minutes. We might not have 15 minutes. Then make it work. We need him to commit. If his people move on you, we can trace them back, arrest everyone at once. Lena's jaw clenched. Copy. She switched frequencies, keyed the command channel. TOC, Overwatch is repositioning as ordered. She could almost hear Merrick's relief in his response. Copy, Overwatch. Confirm when in position. Lena looked at Ruiz. We're not actually moving. I know. But we need them to think we are. How? She grabbed her pack, pulled out a thermal decoy, a small device designed to mimic human heat signatures. Set the timer, placed it 30 meters from their position in the direction of the ravine. That'll give them a target. When they move on it, we'll know where they are. And then? And then we remove them from the equation. They waited. Minutes stretched. The thermal decoy activated, broadcasting a heat signature that would look like two people moving through the brush. And then the jungle came alive. Muzzle flashes erupted from 3 positions, north, east, south, converging fire on the decoy's location. Heavy automatic weapons, coordinated timing. Professional. But firing on an empty position. Lena acquired the northern shooter first, put a round through his chest. He dropped without a sound. Ruiz took the eastern position. 2 shots. 2 down. The southern shooter realized something was wrong, tried to relocate. Lena tracked him through the brush, led his movement, fired. He tumbled down the hillside and didn't get up. Silence fell. Overwatch to Garrett. 3 hostiles down. Grid coordinates as follows. She rattled off positions, heard Garrett coordinating with security teams, moving to secure the area, arrest anyone connected, and then a new voice cut through the radio, panicked, desperate. All units stand down. This is Captain Merrick. There's been a misunderstanding. Garrett's voice replaced him, cold and final. Captain Edward Merrick, you are under arrest for conspiracy, treason, and accessory to murder. Security teams are moving to your location now. Do not resist. Static, shouting, the sound of a struggle, and then silence. Lena lowered her rifle. It was over. 20 minutes later, Cade's voice came through. Overwatch, ground team is secure, operation complete. Return to base. They packed their gear in silence. The security operators emerged from the jungle, confirming the 3 hostiles were dead, collecting weapons and identification. As they walked back toward the extraction point, Ruiz spoke quietly. You think that's all of them? No, but it's enough to break the network. The rest will run or flip. And Merrick? He'll spend the rest of his life in a cell. Probably less if they decide treason during wartime deserves harsher punishment. Ruiz was quiet for a moment, then, good. The helicopter ride back was subdued. No celebration, no relief, just exhaustion and the hollow satisfaction of a job finished but not complete. At Camp Wraith, Lena was met by Colonel Vorenus and Thomas Garrett. They walked her to a debriefing room where she spent 2 hours recounting every detail of the operation, every transmission, every decision. When it was over, Garrett closed his tablet and stood. We have Merrick in custody. 6 of his network are already under arrest. Another 4 are being tracked. This is the beginning of the end for them. Good, Lena said. Garrett studied her. You handled yourself well today. Most people would have followed that order and walked right into the trap. Most people haven't spent weeks watching operations fall apart because of bad intelligence. True, he paused. For what it's worth, you saved more lives than you know. Every operation Merrick compromised, every ambush he set up, it's over now because you refused to let good people die. Lena didn't know what to say to that, so she said nothing. Garrett left. Vorenus remained, sitting across from her in the empty room. You've had a hell of a month, Sergeant. Yes, sir. Disobeyed orders, saved lives, exposed a traitor. You've made quite an impression. I just did what needed doing. That's why I'm recommending you for a Silver Star. Lena's head snapped up. Sir, I know, you don't want recognition, you don't want medals, you just want to do your job. Vorenus leaned forward. But what you did matters, and the people who matter need to know that sometimes the right thing to do is the thing that breaks the rules. Sir, I violated direct orders. Twice. That's leadership, Sergeant. Real leadership. The kind that sees what needs to happen and makes it happen, regardless of cost. He stood. The Silver Star is happening whether you like it or not, but there's something else. I'm also recommending you for officer candidate school. Lena stared at him. I don't understand. You've proven you can think under pressure, make hard calls, lead by example. Those are officer qualities. We need more people like you making decisions, not just following them. I'm a sniper, sir. That's what I'm good at. You're a soldier who saves lives. That's what you're good at. The rifle is just how you do it. Vorenus moved toward the door, then paused. Think about it. You've got time. But know this. You've earned the right to choose your own path now. Whatever you decide, you've got my support. He left. Lena sat alone in the debriefing room, her mind spinning. Officer school, a Silver Star, recognition she never wanted, attention she never asked for, all because she'd refused to watch good people die. She thought about Havoc 6 in the jungle, about the operators at the village, about the men in the medical bay who were alive because she'd broken the rules and paid the price. And she thought about Captain Merrick sitting in a cell somewhere, knowing his entire network was collapsing around him. The door opened again. Cade stepped inside. Heard you're getting a medal. Apparently. Heard you're going to OCS too. Maybe. He sat down across from her. You know what the difference is between you and most people? What? Most people wait for permission to do the right thing. You just do it. He leaned back. That's why you'll make a good officer, if you accept. And if I don't? Then you'll make a good sergeant. Either way, you'll keep saving lives. He stood. But I hope you accept. We need more people like you making the calls. He left her alone again. Lena sat in silence, feeling the weight of everything that had happened, everything that was about to happen, pressing down on her shoulders. She'd started this journey as an observer, someone told to watch and never act. Now she was the one they looked to when everything fell apart, And somewhere, in the chain of command that had once ordered her to stand down and watch men die, people were realizing that Sergeant Lena Cross wasn't going anywhere. She was just getting started. 3 days later, Lena stood in formation as Colonel Varenis pinned a silver star to her uniform. The entire base was assembled. Operators she'd saved, soldiers she'd never met, all watching as she received recognition for doing what she'd always believed was simply right. When it was over, when the formation dismissed and people approached to offer congratulations, she didn't know how to accept. One person hung back. Havoc 6 Actual, the SEAL team leader from the jungle. He approached quietly, extended his hand. "Sergeant Cross?" She shook it. "Sir?" "My team wanted me to give you something." He handed her a small wooden plaque. On it was engraved a simple message: 12 alive because of one. Lena's throat tightened. "We don't forget, Sergeant, ever. You saved us when the system failed. That matters." He saluted. She returned it. He walked away. And Lena stood there, holding the plaque, understanding for the first time that what she'd done hadn't just saved lives. It had changed the entire calculus of what was possible. Somewhere in a detention facility, Captain Merrick was beginning to understand that his betrayal had consequences. And somewhere in the chain of command, people were learning that the woman they'd ordered to stand down had become the one person they couldn't afford to lose. Because Sergeant Lena Cross had discovered something more powerful than following orders. She discovered what happened when you refused to let good people die. And the system was about to learn just how far she'd go to make sure it never happened again. The plaque felt heavier than it should have in Lena's hands. She stood alone in the empty information area, watching soldiers disperse back to their duties, back to the rhythm of a war that didn't pause for ceremonies or recognition. The silver star on her chest caught the sunlight, a small piece of metal that represented something she still wasn't sure she deserved. Not because she doubted what she'd done, but because the men who'd survived were the only metal that mattered. Ruiz approached from the side, hands in his pockets, a rare, serious expression on his face. "You gonna keep staring at that thing, or can we go get food?" Lena tucked the plaque under her arm. "Food sounds good." They walked toward the mess hall in comfortable silence. Around them, the base continued its perpetual motion. Helicopters launching, vehicles moving, soldiers training. War didn't care about medals. It only cared about what came next. Inside the mess hall, Lena grabbed a tray and moved through the line on autopilot. Rice, chicken that tasted like cardboard, vegetables that had seen better days. The same meal she'd eaten 100 times before. She found a quiet corner table, and Ruiz joined her moments later. "Varenis really put you in for OCS?" he asked, attacking his food with mechanical efficiency. "Yeah." "You gonna take it?" Lena pushed rice around her plate. "I don't know." "What's there to think about? You'd make a good officer." "I'm a sniper. That's what I'm trained for. What I'm good at." "You're good at a lot of things. You just haven't figured that out yet." Ruiz paused, fork halfway to his mouth. "You know what people are saying about you?" "I don't want to know." "They're saying you're the reason half the teams here are still alive, that you see things other people miss, that you make the hard calls when everyone else freezes." He set down his fork. "That's not just sniper work, Lena. That's leadership." Before Lena could respond, a shadow fell across their table. She looked up to find Thomas Garrett standing there, still in civilian clothes, still carrying that analytical expression that made her feel like a specimen under glass. "Sergeant Cross." "May I sit?" "It's a free country, mostly." Garrett sat, ignored his own lack of food, and folded his hands on the table. "The investigation into Merrick's network is complete. 19 arrests total. 4 fled the country, 2 are dead. The rest are awaiting court-martial." He paused. "We recovered communications going back 18 months, financial records, operational details he sold. The damage assessment is still ongoing, but preliminary numbers suggest his intelligence compromises led to at least 47 casualties across multiple operations." Lena's hands tightened on her fork. 47. "That we can confirm. Likely more." Garrett's expression didn't change, but something flickered in his eyes. "Your intervention in 3 separate operations prevented an estimated 24 additional casualties. Statistically, you saved more lives than any single operator in theater over the past month." Ruiz let out a low whistle. That's one hell of a batting average. It's also why I'm here. Garrett pulled out a folder, set it on the table between them. I've been authorized to make you an offer, Sergeant. The Defense Intelligence Agency is building a new program, precision support teams embedded with special operations units. The job is exactly what you've been doing. Provide overwatch, actionable intelligence, and direct fire support for high-risk operations. But with better resources, better training, and authorization to operate across the entire theater. Lena stared at the folder without touching it. You want me to do what I've been doing, just officially. I want you to build the program, train the teams, set the standards. Garrett leaned back. You've proven the concept works. Now we need someone who understands it to make it systematic, repeatable, scalable. I'm not an instructor. You're someone who's done it in the field and survived. That's better than any instructor. He tapped the folder. Think about it. You don't have to decide today, but the offer stands. He left the folder and walked away. Lena looked at Ruiz. He shrugged. You're popular this week. I don't want to be popular. I want to shoot straight and go home. Too late for that. You're already a legend. Might as well decide what kind of legend you want to be. Lena opened the folder. Inside was a program outline, mission parameters, organizational structure. Everything laid out in bureaucratic precision. A path forward that didn't look anything like the career she'd imagined when she'd first enlisted. But then, nothing about the past month had looked like anything she'd imagined. She closed the folder, stood. I need air. Outside, the afternoon sun was brutal. Lena walked without destination, letting her feet carry her through the base until she found herself at the perimeter fence, staring out at the jungle beyond. Somewhere out there, operations were happening. Teams were moving. People were making decisions that would save lives or end them, and she'd become someone who tipped those scales. Footsteps approached from behind. She didn't turn, but she recognized the gate. Cade stopped beside her, arms crossed, following her gaze into the jungle. Garrett made you the offer. Word travels fast. Small base, smaller community. Cade was quiet for a moment. You know what the hardest part of command is? No. Knowing that every decision you make might get someone killed, knowing that even perfect choices can have bad outcomes, knowing that you'll carry every failure for the rest of your life. He glanced at her. But you're already carrying that weight. You've been carrying it since OP7. The only question is whether you want to carry it alone or build something that helps other people carry it too. Lena turned to face him. I broke the rules, Sergeant Major. I violated orders. I got lucky that it worked out. Luck had nothing to do with it. You saw what needed to happen and you made it happen. That's not luck. That's judgment. Cade's expression was hard, but his voice was almost gentle. You think I don't know what it costs to make those calls? I've been making them for 20 years. And the only reason I'm still here is because someone taught me that the rules exist to serve the mission, not the other way around. And when the rules get people killed, then someone has to be brave enough to break them. He paused. That's you, Cross. Whether you like it or not, that's who you've become. Now you get to decide what to do with it. He walked away, leaving Lena alone with her thoughts, and the weight of decision she hadn't asked for but couldn't avoid. That night, she lay in her bunk, staring at the ceiling while Ruiz snored across the room. Sleep wouldn't come. Her mind kept cycling through the same questions, the same doubts, the same images of men bleeding out in jungles while command debated protocols. She thought about Havoc 6, about the operators at the village, about the 2 men in the medical bay who were alive because she'd refused to follow orders. And she thought about the 47 casualties Merrick's intelligence had caused. 47 soldiers who'd trusted the system and died because someone had sold them out. 47 people who might still be alive if someone had questioned the intelligence sooner, acted faster, broken the rules earlier. Lena sat up, grabbed her boots, pulled them on in the darkness. She knew what she had to do. The war room was empty when she arrived, just security lights casting long shadows across the maps and satellite images. She found Colonel Verinis's office door unlocked, a lamp still burning inside. The colonel sat at his desk, reading reports, a cup of coffee gone cold beside him. He looked up when she knocked. Sergeant Cross, it's 0200 hours. Yes, sir, I'm sorry to intrude. You're not intruding. I don't sleep much these days. He gestured to a chair. Sit. Tell me what's on your mind. Lena sat, her hands clasped in her lap, her words forming slowly. Sir, I've been thinking about Garrett's offer, about OCS, about what comes next. And? I don't want to be an officer. Not yet. Maybe not ever. That's not who I am. She met his eyes. But I do want to build Garrett's program. I want to train teams to do what I've been doing. Make sure no one else walks into an ambush because intelligence failed and no one questioned it. Vorenus leaned back in his chair. That's a big responsibility. I know, but it's the right one. Lena's voice was steady now, certain. I spent my whole career being told to observe and report, to follow orders and trust the system, and the system failed over and over, 47 times that we know of. And you want to fix that. I want to make sure the next person in my position has the training, the authority, and the support to act when action is what's needed. I want to build something that saves lives instead of just counting casualties. Vorenus studied her for a long moment. Then he picked up his pen, pulled out a form, and started writing. I'll approve your assignment to Garrett's program, but on one condition. Sir? You still go to OCS, not now, but in 2 years after you've built the program and proven it works, because what you're describing isn't just a training pipeline, it's a doctrinal shift, and making that stick requires rank, influence, and political capital. He looked up. You can be the best shooter in the world, Sergeant, but if you want to change the system, you need to be inside it at a level where your voice matters. Lena hesitated, then nodded. Yes, sir, 2 years. Good. Vorenus signed the form, slid it across the desk. Welcome to the fight that actually matters, the one that happens in briefing rooms and policy meetings instead of jungles. It's uglier, slower, and more frustrating than anything you've done so far. I'll manage, sir. I know you will. He almost smiled. Dismissed, Sergeant. Get some sleep. You start building your program tomorrow. Lena stood, saluted, and left. Outside, the base was quiet, the night cool and still. She walked back to the barracks slowly, feeling something settle inside her. Not peace, not satisfaction, but purpose, direction, a path forward that made sense even if it scared her. She'd spent weeks being told she didn't have the right to make decisions. That observation was her job, not action. Now she was going to make sure the next generation of snipers knew that sometimes observation wasn't enough, that sometimes you had to act even when the orders said otherwise, that sometimes the right thing to do was the thing that broke the rules, and she was going to teach them how to do it without getting themselves or anyone else killed. The next morning, Lena met with Garrett in a small office that smelled like fresh paint and possibility. He had maps spread across a table, program outlines, budget proposals, political considerations she'd never thought about. We start small, he said, pointing to a list of potential candidates. 6 teams, 12 shooters, 12 spotters. We embed them with existing special operations units, prove the concept works across different operational environments, then expand from there. What's the timeline? 6 months to select and train the first cohort. Another 6 to evaluate and refine. Then we go theater-wide. Garrett looked at her. You'll have full authority over training standards, selection criteria, and operational protocols. This is your program, Sergeant. Build it right. What about command interference? Politics? I'll handle the politics. You focus on making shooters who can think, act, and survive when everything goes wrong. He paused. And for what it's worth, I'm sorry about OP7. About putting you in a position where you had to make that choice. Lena shook her head. You didn't put me there. The system did. And I'm going to make sure the system learns from it. Good. Because that's exactly what we need. They worked through the morning, building structure from chaos, turning hard-learned lessons into doctrine that could be taught, tested, and trusted. Lena found herself thinking like an instructor for the first time, considering how to communicate not just technique, but judgment. How to teach someone when to follow orders and when to question them. How to build soldiers who understood that the mission was saving lives, not just following protocols. By afternoon, they had the skeleton of a program. By evening, it had flesh. By the time Garrett called it quits for the day, Lena had something she'd never had before. A mission that went beyond the next shot, the next target, the next operation. A mission that might actually change something. 3 weeks later, the first candidates arrived at Camp Wraith. 12 snipers, 12 spotters, pulled from units across the theater based on performance, judgment, and recommendation. They stood in an uneven line outside the training facility, expressions ranging from confident to confused to cautiously hopeful. Lena stood in front of them, Ruiz beside her, Cade watching from the back of the formation. She didn't have a speech prepared, didn't have inspiring words or motivational rhetoric, just the truth. "Most of you know who I am," she said, her voice carrying across the formation. "Some of you know what I did at OP7. What you might not know is why I did it." She paused, meeting eyes, reading faces. "I did it because the system failed. Intelligence was wrong, command was wrong, and following orders would have meant watching good men die." She took a step forward. "You're here to learn how to be the person who acts when the system fails. How to make the hard call when no one else will. How to save lives even when it costs you everything." One of the snipers, a corporal with sharp eyes and a skeptical expression, spoke up. "With respect, Sergeant, that sounds like a recipe for court-martial." "It is. Unless you're right. Unless the lives you save matter more than the rules you broke." Lena's voice hardened. "I'm not teaching you to be reckless. I'm teaching you to think, to read situations, to understand when doctrine serves the mission and when it serves bureaucracy. And most importantly, to live with the consequences of your choices." Another pause, longer this time. "If that's not what you signed up for, leave now. No judgment, no questions asked." She waited. No one moved. "Good. Then let's get to work." The training was brutal, not physically, though that was hard enough, but mentally. Lena pushed them to think through scenarios where every option was bad, where following orders meant casualties and breaking orders meant career suicide. She taught them to read intelligence with skepticism, to verify before acting, to trust their instincts but confirm with evidence. And she taught them to shoot, not just accurately but adaptively, to engage targets at range, mid-range, close quarters, to transition from precision to volume fire, to operate alone, in pairs, embedded with teams who depended on them to be more than just another rifle. Ruiz handled the technical training, ballistics, wind reading, equipment maintenance. Cade brought in operators to simulate real-world scenarios, to pressure test the students under conditions that mimicked actual combat. And slowly, over weeks of 14-hour days and exhausted nights, the program took shape. Not everyone made it. 2 snipers washed out in the first month, good shooters, but unable to make decisions under pressure. Another left after a training scenario where he froze instead of acting, realizing he didn't have the temperament for the job. But the ones who remained were exceptional. Fast learners, clear thinkers, soldiers who understood that the rifle was just a tool. The real weapon was judgment. 6 months after the program started, Garrett arrived for the final evaluation. He brought senior officers, intelligence analysts, operational planners, people who needed to see proof that the program worked before authorizing expansion. The evaluation was simple: a live-fire exercise simulating a compromised operation. The student teams were given faulty intelligence deliberately, embedded with operators who didn't know the fix was in, and tasked with providing overwatch while the operation unfolded. The test wasn't whether they could shoot, it was whether they could think. Lena watched from the observation post as the first team realized the intelligence was wrong, saw the ambush forming, made the call to engage without authorization. Clean, decisive, exactly right. The second team hesitated, called for confirmation, lost precious seconds. But they recovered, adapted, still accomplished the mission. The third team followed doctrine, didn't engage until explicitly authorized. By the time permission came through, 2 operators in the simulation had taken simulated casualties. After the exercise, Garrett gathered everyone in the briefing room. He stood at the front, arms crossed, expression unreadable. "I've been in this business 20 years, he said. "I've seen a lot of programs come and go. Most of them fail because they're built on theory instead of experience, built by people who've never done the job they're trying to teach." He looked at Lena. "This program works because it was built by someone who's done it, someone who's made the hard calls and lived with the consequences, someone who understands that saving lives sometimes means breaking rules." He turned to the students. 6 months ago, you were snipers. Good ones, probably. But now you're something different. You're decision makers, problem solvers, the people who act when everyone else is waiting for permission. He paused. We're expanding this program theater-wide, 18 new teams over the next year, and every one of them will be trained to the standard Sergeant Cross established here. The room was silent. This isn't the end of your training, it's the beginning. You're going back to your units as force multipliers, as the people who make sure operations don't fail because someone was too scared to question bad intelligence or too rigid to adapt to reality. Garrett's voice dropped. Carry that responsibility well. People's lives depend on it. Lena stood at the side of the room, watching her students process what they'd become, what was being asked of them. She saw herself in their faces, the uncertainty, the weight, the determination, and she saw something else. Hope. After the ceremony, after the officers left and the students dispersed, Lena found herself alone in the training facility. The range was quiet, target stands empty, the smell of gunpowder fading. Cade found her there, standing in the silence. You did good work here, Cross. We did good work, all of us. True, but you're the one who made it happen. He was quiet for a moment. Varanus told me about the OCS deal. 2 years, then you go get your commission. That's the plan. You ready for that? Lena thought about it. About the weight of command, the politics, the endless meetings and bureaucratic battles that came with rank and authority. No, but I will be. Cade almost smiled. That's the right answer. He turned to leave, then paused. You know what you've built here, right? It's not just a training program. It's proof that the system can change, that one person can make a difference. I didn't do it alone. No, but you started it, and that's what matters. He left. Lena stood alone in the empty range, feeling the weight of everything that had happened settle into something manageable, almost comfortable. She'd started as someone ordered to watch and never act. She'd become someone who acted when action was needed, and now she was someone who taught others to do the same. The system hadn't broken her. She'd bent it, shaped it, made it better. And in 2 years, when she had the rank and authority to push harder, to change policy at higher levels, to build something that lasted beyond one program or one theater, she'd be ready. Because Sergeant Lena Cross had learned something in the jungles and mountains and kill zones of a war she'd never asked to fight. She'd learned that sometimes the most powerful thing you could do wasn't follow orders. It was decide what was worth fighting for and refuse to compromise. 12 men in a jungle, 24 operators across multiple operations, 47 casualties prevented by exposing a traitor. And now, dozens of soldiers trained to think, adapt, and act when the system failed, lives saved. Not because someone followed protocol, but because someone decided that lives mattered more than rules. Lena walked out of the training facility into the afternoon sun. Somewhere in the distance, helicopters were landing. Operations were launching. The war continued its relentless rhythm. But the people going into that war now had something they didn't have before. They had someone watching their back who knew when to shoot, when to move, and when to question the orders that didn't make sense. And that made all the difference. Lena didn't know what the next 2 years would bring. Didn't know if OCS would change her or if she'd change it. Didn't know if her program would survive contact with higher politics and competing priorities. But she knew one thing with absolute certainty. She'd never stand by and watch good people die when she had the power to save them. Not then, not now, not ever. And anyone who tried to order her otherwise was going to learn exactly how immovable Sergeant Lena Cross could be when she decided something mattered. The sun set over Camp Wraith, painting the sky in shades of fire and blood. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new operations, new decisions that would define who lived and who didn't. But tonight, for the first time in months, Lena felt something close to peace. Not because the war was over, but because she'd found her place in it. And that place wasn't on the sidelines, observing, waiting for permission to act. It was in the fight, making the calls no one else would make, teaching others to do the same, building something that would outlast her and save lives long after she was gone. She'd been ordered to stand down and let 12 men die. She'd refused. And that refusal had changed everything, not just for her, not just for the men she'd saved, but for everyone who came after. Because sometimes the line between failure and survival wasn't firepower or tactics or even luck. Sometimes it was just one person willing to act when everyone else was waiting for orders. And Lena had was still proving, that one person could be enough. One person could change the math. One person could rewrite the rules. One person could look at an impossible situation and decide that impossible just meant no one had tried hard enough yet. She walked toward the barracks, her shadow long in the fading light, her purpose clear, her future uncertain, but hers to define. And somewhere, in jungles and mountains and kill zones she'd never see, soldiers she'd trained were making their own calls, saving their own lives, carrying forward the lessons she'd taught them. That the mission wasn't following orders. The mission was bringing everyone home. Everything else was just noise.